Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity. I am Jan Jeremias, and I'm here with my canine companion, Tonka, who's being very so attentive today. So a little bit about me. I'm a trained scientist who began exploring holistic and alternative healing about 18 years ago. I began my journey with the use of essential oils and began exploring other modalities such as Reiki, gentle massage for pets and for people. I do work with people occasionally. I am the co-author of the top-selling essential oil book for pets called Spoil Your Pet, a practical guide to using essential oils in dogs and cats. And so today I would like to welcome Mindy to our show, to our episode. So welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So a little bit about Mindy. We met on LinkedIn, I think, but it's just I have always loved photography. So she is a pet photographer, which kind of combines the best of both worlds, and predominantly dogs, I think. We'll have to ask whether she does cats too. But she loves telling stories, and she tells stories through the lens of her camera, which I think most artists do. They're trying to relay a message, a feeling. And in this case, she combines dogs with this story and their story. She captures the feelings of a pet brand. She does pet branding photos and uses her photos to tell important stories that and to celebrate the human-animal bond, which obviously, I think if you have a pet or have been around a pet, you understand that bond. Her photos create connections and bring the subject to life, whether it be about how your brand makes you and your dog feel, capturing the spirit of your beloved dog, or shining a light on animal advocacy. Her connection to dogs allows her to capture those stories in a meaningful way, an impactful image that evokes emotion. So welcome again, Mindy.
Hello again.
So why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about how you got into this and how long you've been a pet photographer?
So I have been a pet photographer for 6 years now. And I always loved dogs. And I've always loved photography as well. And about 6 years ago, I don't know, had an aha moment and said, I think it's time to create a career that is all about, things I love and has a very strong purpose and why for me. And so I realized I could put my two loves, and actually now it's three. I'll add storytelling into dogs photography and storytelling, and that was sort of my tagline is because every dog has a tale, because I believe every dog has many stories. They have the stories of their history, they have the stories that they bring to us, and I don't know, anyone who's rescued a dog, I'm pretty sure has had either a silent or an out loud conversation with their dog. Well, what happened to you? What did you experience? And usually it's, I'm so sorry, life is going to get better from here on in. But, we're all curious of the stories that they have. So I decided to be a pet photographer. And then I decided to just sort of go on a journey to educate myself. I called it my master's class without technically going to, an institution. And I, have dove right in. I did work on branding. I did work on the business of photography. I studied up about storytelling. I've studied intensely to improve my photography. Online courses, one-on-one mentorships where I've flown to different parts of the country to work with other expert pet photographers, and mostly just photographed lots and lots and lots of dogs. And it's a joy. I mean, dogs just light me up, and every dog I meet takes up a little space in my heart. The work has evolved from working primarily with pet parents and doing private photo shoots to working with pet brands and photographing, their stories of their brands. And then I've also always been involved. One of the things that I loved is that I could use my photography and my storytelling to shine a light on dog rescues, on dogs in need. It creates awareness, it raises money. So I've done a lot of interesting things in that avenue. I've worked for different rescues within the states. I used to volunteer at the Animal Control Center in New York, walking the dogs and photographing them. Many other rescues in the states, particularly like a photograph is just so I don't think people understand the power of it. It could literally mean the difference between life and death to a dog in a shelter or up for adoption. People need to look at a dog and feel emotion and picture that dog in their house as part of their family. And if all they're seeing is a poor, these dogs come into a shelter, they're scared, they're terrified, they're usually dirty, skinny, shaking, and shelters are on overwhelm. So, they just put the dog in, a lot of times it's a cinder block cell, poorly lit, and they take a photo. And that's the photo that they show. And everybody in their mind says that dog's broken. I don't want that dog. I don't know why he's in the shelter. They all tell themselves these crazy stories where I'm of the ilk that it's never the dog's fault.
Yeah, no,
But
not
right. But to see a beautiful, photo and to be able to take the time and capture the spirit of the dog, because even that poor beaten down dog, that's the thing about dogs, is that they never lose their spirit, really, given enough love and attention back. So that's very important to me. I've done work I've gone to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria to document and photograph, bring awareness to, what was happening with the dog and cat stray population. And, especially there, or I've done work in Mexico, I've done work in Cartagena, and people are doing, there's a tale of two cities. It's an awful situation, but within that awful situation are also people with just the biggest hearts that spend all of their time and energy and money, trying to help the animals. And without photos and stories, nobody knows what they're doing,
right.
So it's allowed me to shine a spotlight on them, create awareness, help raise money, at least bring attention to people's minds.
No, I love that idea. I love what you talk about of like pictures of dogs in shelters, because it's so true. Plus a photo is worth 1,000 words, and so as much as you describe something, it's not the same as for me, it's not the same as visually seeing it. So, because not to say that words don't touch a place in your heart, because I think they do. But I think if you have a photo that goes with that, it creates so much more of an impact.
So much more of an impact. There's all kinds of studies where your mind, your memory remembers things in much greater detail when you've seen it visually. And I think that part of what I do, and I think my photos reflect it. I've been often told that they capture the soul and spirit of dogs, and they're different. Each dog is different. So and it's because of the connection that I have with dogs, and it's very important. You have to be patient and work on a dog's schedule. you know, and it's important to me to give that dog dignity and give that dog time to feel comfortable, you know, in the photo. And that's how, you know, I marry the technical capabilities with the, you know, connection and energy of the dog to be able to capture the photos that I do with humans and without humans. And I think with humans and without humans both, that my photos also represent that human animal bond. Um,
And I love the idea of creating a story. And I think that we all, yes, I mean, Tonka definitely has his own story. And like you said, he was a rescue. I've actually had his emotional code done. I had that done recently. My vet does it. And so it wasn't really anything I didn't know, but it was kind of interesting to have somebody else kind of totally understand and get him on a level like that.
mhm.
And I think there's something, like you said, about the spirit of the dog that comes through sometime, that always comes through, even with all his, and he's a great dog, but even with all his quote unquote baggage, he still has things he absolutely loves. And to see that joy and that expression come out is just like, wow. And that's where photos are just so great at capturing that exact moment or those moments. I know that being a cell phone person, I don't think there's a person now who isn't like taking digital photos all the time. I have so many pet photos on my phone. It's probably the majority are pet photos.
I agree with that. And I think that is wonderful. But I also think that for people to understand the value of professional photos, they're both great and they both have their purpose. And I am a proponent of the best camera is the camera that you have with you. But like anything else, you know, that's why you hire, you know, experts in their field for whatever. If you have a plumbing problem, you hire a plumber. You don't try to fix it yourself. So I think that people feel, oh, they can take photos, and they can, but that doesn't mean that the photo that they take, because, you know, they haven't spent all that time in education and the camera equipment doesn't always, you know, isn't always as sharp, doesn't always reflect that. People that have black dogs wind up with more of just a dark face because there's a lot of tricks to capturing, you know, a black dog's face and capturing the light in his eyes. So, you know, I hope that more and more people, you know, feel it's an investment well made, both for pet brands and for individuals, because you'll never be sorry. And, you know, there's something to be said too. It's a bit of a lost art, printed photos, tangible photographs. Yes, it's awesome that they're on your phone, but that's where they are. And, you know, you're not looking at them on your wall around you. And, you know, I know that you specialize in grief and counseling people. And I can speak from experience that having quality photos that represent, that honor your dog as wonderful and beautiful as they are, not, oh, I wish that photo was better, you know, but a photo that really represents your dog, having them around and being able to look at those photos, you know, it's so healing. And you know, they're always with you, but they're really always with you when you can just look up and see that face again.
I love it. First of all, I totally agree. I think there's nothing like seeing them out and about in your home, because technically, hopefully you're not having your phone in your hand 24 hours a day. So it's not like you're going to have the photo up all the time. And if it's out in your house in a main room, every time you pass it, you glance at it. And for me, it's like every time I glance and I pass Tonka, I smile, it's just like this feeling of love that comes over me. And so, and I think also that idea of, for me, like if I was to have it done, would be that our relationship together, our connection, like that to me is so strong that capturing that to me would be priceless.
Right. And it is. And I also always encourage people, at least for a couple of photos, get in the shot. And some people who are really, camera shy or just really don't enjoy seeing themselves.
I know.
But there are so many ways to capture. You don't have to. Your hands in the photo. I have like a signature shot where the dog, there's one on the front page of my website, where I line the dog up next to your feet kind of thing. And 100% that bond, that connection, is there. So there are lots of different ways to photograph with face, without face, and capture that connection. Mm-hmm.
And I also really value that your idea or thoughts around spending time to, one is capture that moment, and spending time with the pet, because having spent so much time around pets these days, there's, depending on the pet, there is, it's like when you first meet a person, every dog is different, and some dogs are a little bit aloof and kind of suspicious and standoffish and take a little while to warm up to people, or some never warm up to people. And being able to just even allow them their space, because you don't need to crowd. I mean, obviously, to me, you don't need to crowd them to see they just need to allow you to be in their proximity to watch them or to observe.
Absolutely. I never start a photo shoot, whether it's a commercial shoot, whether it's private shoot, even a lot of times the rescues shoots, I'll use a very long lens, so I don't have to be in their space, because I don't always have the opportunity to spend as much time on those photographs. But basically, according to their energy, I take the time, and certainly never put a camera up to my face before they know me, because that's scary for a dog. It's a big camera I have with a big lens, and that looks like my face if that's all that they see. So you always sort of have to be on the perspective of the dog, when you're photographing. They're the hero of the photo. And it's about their tail. It's about them to me. And I get the honor of capturing that, is really how I feel every time I photograph dogs. And, so it takes time, like I try to equate, like I'll click the camera, give them a treat. I'll find out a lot about, as much as I can, about the dogs. If it's a dog that, I know in advance is shy, I don't even approach them. I'll sit there for 15 minutes and, put a cookie next to me, a dog treat next to me, and wait until they're comfortable. So all of that is very important. It's also really tiring. It's hard work for dogs to be photographed, like in a photo shoot. So you need to be mindful of that. They need fun breaks. It should be fun for them. And interesting, when I do a lot of, when I've been in Mexico and Puerto Rico and places where I'm meeting either street dogs or mini dogs in a rescue situation, and I know those dogs have some terrible, trauma in their history. so sweet. I'd never had a dog. They come right up to me as if like, and I think they also know, they know, a kindred spirit, but they come right up to me. They eat out of my hand. They, just smile. And it's never ceased to amaze me how, like I said, they continue to a little wary, but they continue to trust and love,
That
where
is
people can't let go of that so fast.
no, not at all. And that is amazing, because you would think with all that they go through, they would be very standoffish and aloof and
E-
very guarded. And
Exactly.
and obviously they're not. So those are some special, but are there any other special stories that you'd like to share with everyone?
Yeah, I have
About
one that just happened that I just love. I kind of, I'm amazed that this happened. I mentioned a couple of times I was in Cartagena and photographed for, it was it's more of a sanctuary, because the dogs don't, there's not a system to get the dogs adopted, but it's a woman who actually moved to Cartagena, retired, but had to go back to work because she saw the problems with the dogs, and bought a piece of land and started the sanctuary and runs this rescue. Since I've been there, I've stayed in touch with her. I've helped raise some money, and we've become friends. And there's a story on my website about the whole thing, along with the photos that I captured. And that was in February 2019. But again, I made a connection with this person and, have continued working with her. About 3 weeks ago, at like 10:30 at night, I'm getting ready to go to bed. I happened, a bad habit of mine, I check my emails before I go to sleep. And there's an email that says, please help. Can you rescue this dog in St. Andrews Square in Cartagena? It took me a minute, and I realized that someone probably Googled, because I know, that because of that story, I've seen I come up under dog rescues in Cartagena. And the man, the amazing about this story is it crossed continents, like different countries were involved in this. He came from New Jersey, but he was traveling in Cartagena and couldn't bear, he saw a dog, really sick and needing help, and he just couldn't bear to just leave the dog there, but didn't know what to do. So again, at 10:30 at night, but he was looking for help. So I messaged him back, explained that I'm not there, I'm in Boston, explained the whole thing, but kind of was like, I don't know, this dog needs help, And I said, the woman who runs the shelter, I happen to know, is in France. She's not in Cartagena right now. So with the time difference, it's the middle of the night. There's not a lot I can do. I started also, I had better access because of Wi-Fi. So I started Googling a couple things. I said, it looks like there's an emergency vet. Looks like there's this. Maybe you can contact them. And so the long and the short was nothing could happen at night. We went through a bunch of different things and back and forth. And we decided that he would go back to his hotel. He would go to sleep, and we would reconnect in the morning. In the meantime, I did send out emails and messaging to anybody that I thought could possibly help, explaining the situation. We connected in the morning. He couldn't find the dog. So we were concerned, but, didn't know what to do. And in the meantime, I had a little bit of back and forth with the woman in France, explaining, so she had a heads up on what was going on. At 5:00 that night, the man messaged me again. I found the dog. It's here. What do we do? And I was like, okay, hold on. And I'm, WhatsApping, emailing, texting. And Cecilia, the woman who runs the sanctuary, was able to get the phone number of a woman who's in Cartagena that spoke English and Spanish. I gave that phone number to the man. He contacted her, paid for her cab, She jumped in a cab, went over there. I have photos of it. I have videos of it. They rescued the dog. The man gave a donation. The dog has since been brought to the vet and literally probably would not have survived more than a couple of days. And the dog is thriving now. It is waiting to be adopted. I want so badly to make the very end of the story a super happy ending. So anybody listening, this dog, we're working on it, could get flown to the United States. It could get flown anywhere within reasonable distance. It needs a home. It needs a second chapter. So I'm confident we'll find that. But that's a story that came from me, photographing because I want to tell dog stories.
What was I going to say? Say a little bit more about the dog, Mindy. So what, do they have an idea what kind of breed, about the age?
So he's a young dog, and anybody that wants to get in touch with me, I can connect them to the woman in Cartagena. I have photos. I don't know what kind of dog he is. He's probably like a Cartagena mix. He's very cute. I'm going to show you a picture so you can see. This is him since he's been rescued.
Oh yeah.
And how I put up actually a story, and this is him right after. This is him at the vet right after he was rescued.
Oh my
He had all kinds of skin issues, and so even you can just see. I mean, but his eyes are brighter, his fur, his skin is clearer, and he's a really, really sweet, energetic, fun, smart dog. I mean, and loving. What I talked about. When she rescued him, he wagged his tail. He knew people were trying to help him.
I love the ears.
Yeah, they're huge.
They're huge ears. I'm like looking at the ears, like, oh my God, the big ears. For those of you who don't, obviously, we're just doing the audio, but ears that stick straight up reminds me of shepherd ears, but longer and less fur. They're
right.
Really, yeah, adorable. So
that's the power of connections, the power of story, and that transcends. I mean, whether you're talking about a pet brand, people buy because they feel value, they feel feelings, not because you tell them. And having the right photos that are able to show that feeling, so if it's a dog toy and I've gotten a photograph of a dog joyfully, playing with that dog toy, like, yeah, then you have a connection. Like that dog, that toy makes the dog happy. That makes me happy watching the toy, so it's so much, there's a lot more to it. A lot of times people finish up with all their branding and their website and they're like, photos. I got a few on my phone. Let me buy stock photos, or I'm out of money. Instead of, it should be the reverse. The photos lead. The photos draw you in. The photos are your emotional connection, and they're powerful and they're important to have the right photo.
I really love that, because I think photos, like we were talking about the power of photos with words, and I, being a writer, and I do still write a lot, I love the power of words, but like I said, combining them with a photo, especially for something like a brand, how important is that? Because obviously you're using wording and you're trying to capture people with what you say, but there's more than one way to say something, yeah. So, if you're a teacher, I think if you're a teacher of any sort, that, because kids learn visually and they learn audibly by hearing and listening and reading. So there's a multifaceted impact that can happen if you combine words with the storytelling of photo, with that visual impact. Because they're buying an emotion. They're not buying.
Right. And if it's your pet, it's like your child. You're not going to buy a pet food. You're not going to buy anything for your pet if you don't trust its source. It's more than just, oh, okay. So you want to, it's important to tell a full story. And that, the way I talked about that, I spend time with the pet, with the dog. I spend time with the people, that hire me as well to find out their story, to talk about, what's important. And then to come up with a creative way to tell that story.
It's just so impactful. I think that, and usually I think if you're really looking at a branding, or you can tell, I can tell by looking at the photos. It's kind of like when you look at a catalog of clothing or something, and you can tell which ones have spent a lot of money or spent, or place value. I shouldn't say spent a lot of money, place value in the photographs they use or the photography that's used and what they're trying to say and things like that. And that's very, almost easily to me, revealed. And I'm not saying, I take photos on my phone all the time, and I have used photos for posts and things like that I've taken. But that doesn't substitute for doing, professional photographs. Now, I do have a question. So, people on limited budgets, it's not like they could definitely, let's say, do a photo shoot all the time. Like, it's not like a kid, when you take kids photos, where you sit there and you say, okay, we're going to have professional photos taken every year, 1 year, 2 years. Like with a pet, people may do that, but people may not. Is there an age that you really like to capture with people, or is that really not? It's really just they come to you whenever they come to you.
They come to me. The only thing that I say is don't wait, because people, all of a sudden, very often, people come to me that, their dog has they know their dog has a limited time, whether it's because of age or because of an illness or something, and they're devastated, and, they want photos. Don't wait for that, at any point, at any time, do it. But, do it because, you want that shared experience, you want to capture it. So if you can, and if you find that you love it, you do it again, or you don't do it again. That becomes the one time. If that's your only opportunity at the end, you want those pictures, as well. But I don't know what else to say except for don't wait. All ages are good. All stages are good.
Absolutely. It's like having a pet throughout its life. Every age has its benefits.
Right.
I remember and I wish I had professional photos of my last dog, but I remember because she died at 19,
Whoa,
she was very old. And I just remember when I got Tonka, he was, 5 months old, and my father said, "How is he?" And I said, "He actually moves." I was so used to having a dog that was older that if she walked across the backyard, I was excited, kind of thing. That all of a sudden I had something that was like a speed demon. It was so funny. Do you also do cats?
I do cats. I don't have as much opportunity. And cats are usually, you don't as often let a cat roam free, but yeah, I absolutely, can and do cats. And even if I'm working at a rescue and there are cats, I'll photograph them as well. Cats are a little trickier because they don't respond to sound in the same way, as the dogs do, and they're just more independent. But yeah, you can still, I've got some great photos of cats, and I can certainly do cats. And if you have a cat and dog, those are sweet shots too, especially if they have a nice relationship.
Yeah, my dog doesn't understand that all cats are because I had 2 cats for most of his life, for 11 years of his life. So it's always funny to me. Like my friend of mine has Grand Kitty, and when we go and visit her and the cat sees him, she has 2 really tiny dogs and he's huge. The cat kind of looks at him like, what is this giant saying? And he doesn't understand because he wants to be friends. He's like, oh my gosh, there's a kitty, and the cat's like, sorry, buddy, you're not coming near me. But I would think also, I know we have some listeners out there who have horses. And to me, capturing a horse on a photo, they're just beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm not, I know people that specialize in horse photography. I also, I'm comfortable around horses. And it could probably, my skill set could expand to horses, and the same thing. There's a bond between, horses are beautiful, magnificent animals. So yeah, I highly recommend, people with horses the same to photograph their horse. I'd be up for the challenge.
Yeah, I'll have to mention it to a friend of mine who lost she had 2, she has 2 in a burrow, and she lost one of her horses. I want to say about 6-8 months ago. And so now just has the one horse and the donkey, and it's just, one is it's hit her really hard, and her horse is pretty old now, and so capturing those relationships before it's too late. I think that's my kind of impetus. It's like I want to do this now before it's too late. And then I sit there and I'm like, I should have. Oh, that's never good. Should have.
No, I should, could have, would have. My what I tell people is that, you won't remember, how much something it cost you, but I will guarantee you that every time you look at that photo, you will smile. So it does be, and I have people often come back to me, after their dog has passed, or even sometimes when their dog is still alive, and they, I don't think they even realized how much joy that they were going to get, and how glad they are that they worked with me and they have the photos that they do. It's also particularly when I do photograph a dog that's time is limited. It's interesting because I wind up in a place where I have I don't know, there's a connection, and it becomes a very intimate relationship with the people and the dog. And usually I'm one of the first people that they call and tell that they lost the dog, because, and not only did I photograph that dog, but I've probably spent hours and hours in my editing later on. So like, I really, have a sense and a connection, and, I feel that loss deeply, even though, sometimes I didn't know the dog well. But it's an interesting thing that, and other dog photographers will tell you the same thing, but you wind up, it being a very special relationship.
Well, I think it's interesting when you work with animals, because I think that, or pets, as I feel that way about my clients. When they pass, it usually hits me pretty hard. And, depending on how long I've known them, could be a few years, could be more, could be less. And usually, not that I don't like to say, but usually people come to me sort of when something's been diagnosed, and at the end, yes, it is a problem. Wish people would come to me earlier, but, and so the animal's not necessarily feeling well. And it's always this, and I still am prepared because I know what's coming on and what's going to happen, but still you develop that bond, and they trust you, and they learn who you are. And, and it's still very hard in some ways. But I can understand. And that, you then, for you, when you capture those moments and you're spending hours, looking at that photograph. And, if you're photographing so that you see the emotion, you're spending a lot of time with that quality, let's say.
Right.
So you understand what sort of like what has been lost by its absence.
Right. And those photos, they just truly become priceless.
Mm.
So I've always felt that way about photography, even before I, became as skilled at it. I was just fascinated by the idea of like the documenting and the being able to capture, like freeze a moment in time and go back and see that. Even children, I believe a lot of your youngest memories are from photos. That you don't have actually the memory, but the photo created the memory for you.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Well, I don't know, I guess it's about a year and a half ago, I had professional photos done of me with my parents. I was like, I hadn't seen them in 2 years because of COVID. I was like, I'm going to capture this moment right now because you never know what's going to happen. And I want professional photos. Yes, people take photos, and I hired somebody. And we, when they came to visit, we went, and Tonka was in the photos. So it was a true family photo.
Right. Right. It's so valuable. And there was something else that I wanted to add when we were talking about the pet brand and the fact that I, niched down very specifically to dogs. But it's like anything else. A lot of pet brands will come to me and say, oh, we have used a photographer before, but we didn't think about using a dog photographer. Now that we know about you, it makes all the sense in the world, because it's a different skill set to capture the dog than it is to take a photograph of people, basically. And all of a sudden they're just like, oh wow, so it takes it to even another level of hiring a photographer that specializes in what you need them to specialize in.
Well, as you said before, like you call a plumber when you have a plumbing problem. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that when you start to get into the the further refinements of whatever it is, because all of a sudden, all the nuances are so important. And I don't think you necessarily see them unless you look for them. So I think, when you get on somebody's website, like your website, where you show people photos, all of a sudden that comes through versus something that they've never really even thought about.
Right.
Because we don't know what we don't know. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, so yes, I mean, is the family photo great? Yeah, it's a good photo, but the guy, I mean, and I loved the photo. I mean, he was a great photographer, but I don't know how many pets he does. So, to have a pet photographer take pictures of him would be so much fun.
Right.
I have a few shots that I have been captured through the years. My mother was such a grandmother, and she looked at one of them one day and she said, he really should have been a model. And I just said, Mom, you're such a grandma. And so it was so funny. But yeah, he is pretty photogenic, but it is really, really funny.
Yeah.
When that comes through. And so what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, they can email me at hello@dogsimeet. My website is dogsimeet.com. So, please take a look around on it. You can connect me. My email's on there. My phone number's on there. I'm on Instagram @dogsimeet. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, which is under my name, Mindy Dutka. So any of those ways, people can reach out and And I do have a phone number. I'm old school. I like when people call me. So
Totally get it. Totally get it. I would much rather people call me than email me because I miss too many emails that are important.
Right.
And so I feel like just
And I
call me.
always offer a complimentary, consultation call, because I think that's important as well. And I think it's important that, just like I connect with the people, that the people and I connect. I think that's, I want everybody to feel like everything is a good fit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure my listeners will really enjoy this, and feel free to reach out to Mindy. I mean, she's awesome at what she does, and find out where she'll travel to and get your pet photos, capture those memories. And we're wishing everybody here, Tonka's really quiet today, but he's wishing you all also a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
You too.
You've been listening to Pets, People, Life, and Longevity, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode at exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.